Welcome to the Andy Staples Show. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy best day of the college football playoff semifinals ever. Ari Wasserman was at the Fiesta Bowl. I was at the Peach Bowl. Ari, have you recovered?
I don't know which game was more. The Ohio State Georgia game had to be more exciting, right? Because it came down to a final kick.
I could barely breathe. It was
that was
unbelievable. That was so. I felt like my face was melting because it felt like every time some team did anything, the other team immediately responded, which I know is what the game you were at felt like for a while.
for sure. Like, there's no question about it. It seemed like TCU was going to pull away and win that game 5 different times, and then Michigan came back and scored quickly. And man, that Horned Frogs team, dude, like, they're something special. Like, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat Georgia. You know how I feel, but that team deserves every bit of praise it gets and can enjoy this moment. Because if you would have told me, Stuart looked this up at the Fiesta Bowl, but TCU was a 20, like, it was like 230 to 1 to make the playoff this year.
Right. Nobody even thought about them when the season started.
Right. I think they were picked to finish 7th in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And like the column that I wrote after the game was that it's going to help be the first step to make me rethink the Stars Matter mantra in terms of the way that we used to view it.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you're compiling a roster now is different. The way that they had 13 transfers after last year, and they might be number 32 in the composite rankings, but their team is better than what that indicates as a result of how they were able to flip their team. But man, Michigan had a lot of unforced errors, and TCU capitalized on them. 2 pick sixes in the same game. I felt like I was at an Iowa game. The defense stepped up.
But TCU kept scoring. They kept pouring it on, because I kept thinking every time Michigan would get it close, like, okay, this is it. This is where they take over. But TCU would respond. Brandon Simmons in the chat with a great question. Can we talk about what Gary Patterson is thinking right now? Has a school ever erected a statue of a coach that's never won a title, fired him the next season, and the new coach win a title in year 1? No. The closest comparison to this is Auburn firing Gene Chizik and Gus Malzahn taking them to the SEC title and the national title game the following
But Gene
season.
Chizik won a national title. So
correct. Exactly. That's the difference.
Yeah, I don't know what Gary Patterson's thinking. I know human nature would probably be like, I wish they wouldn't be this good, so that they felt needed, But
they're not here without his ability to identify talent. Let's be real about it.
Yeah, they're not here without his ability to identify talent and having key pieces on the roster that still carried over. But they're also not here if Sonny Dykes didn't get the defensive lineman out of the portal that he needed.
Exactly.
And, it's just, I saw a tweet in the middle of the game that stuck with me. It's like, Max Duggan lost a quarterback battle this year.
Yes.
And then became a Heisman finalist, and now is just showing out.
Think
in
about
a playoff
it this
game.
way. At either the guy who didn't win the opening day starter job for Georgia last year is going to win 2 national titles in a row, or a guy who didn't win the starting quarterback job at TCU this year is going to win the national title.
Yeah, we were 1 kick away from having a national championship game between 2 non-conference
champions. Oh, people's heads would have exploded.
Yeah. So, in terms of the entire package, both games together, that was the best in the 8-year history of the 4-team, right?
9 season history. Yes.
It was 9.
Well, 9 seasons. Yeah. They've done it 9 times. It absolutely was. It 100% was the best set of semifinals we've seen. I don't even think there's another set that's even close, because the best individual game is that Georgia-Oklahoma Rose Bowl still, but the Alabama-Clemson game and the Sugar Bowl right after that was so boring. It was probably the most boring of all of them. So
right.
There were
no blowouts.
2 bangers. It was incredible. And here's the thing, and this is what I wrote about after the Georgia-Ohio State game. If Utah doesn't beat USC, we don't get that. We probably get the classic TCU Michigan game, maybe, or we get Michigan USC and Georgia TCU, but we may get Georgia USC, which, especially if Caleb Williams is still hampered by the hamstring, I don't think that game would have been particularly close. Instead, we got Georgia playing a team of fairly equal talent, and CJ Stroud answering every critic of his play. Like in
Oh, yeah.
every way we've criticized CJ Stroud, he answered. It felt like there were like 10 individual plays that were direct responses to a criticism of him that has been lobbed over the last month.
Yeah, the funniest one being a 20-ish yard rush to get them into field goal range when they started a drive with less than
27-yard
27
rush.
yards. Jeez.
Yes, it was
Yeah, was it the
unbelievable.
longest rush of his Ohio State career?
When they scored the touchdown, when Stetson Bennett hit A.D. Mitchell for that touchdown, which was huge. A.D. Mitchell came back from injury in this game, and he had played a little bit in the SEC championship game, but he'd been hurt, and they didn't do it much with him. So that catch was the biggest catch he'd made since the touchdown in the national title game last year. So he makes that catch. There's 54 seconds left, and everybody in the press box and everybody in the stands and everybody on their couch and everybody on a bar stool was going, that's too much time. 54 seconds felt like a month for CJ Stroud to get them into field goal range.
Yeah, and they probably could have gotten a little bit closer too at the end there. I know there's going to be a lot of people who criticize Ryan Day for, maybe not trying to get more yardage to set up a more manageable kick. But I thought he coached his ass off in that game. And, the point that I made, like, listen, first, I got to say, I didn't give Ohio State a shot in hell to win that football game. And I was clearly wrong about it. The second thing I want to say is that's exactly what the column that I wrote meant 2.5 weeks ago when Georgia got matched up with Ohio State. People were like, they suck. They almost lost to Michigan. There's no way that Georgia's going to sweat with this team. And then they played a national championship caliber game, and Georgia was a field goal away from not advancing because they played a team that was loaded with talent the way that they were, that played well. That said, Ohio State fans are going to try to, point the finger that was a tough, last 2 games of the year. But Ohio State's best might not have been good enough to beat Georgia's best because Georgia's just a better football team.
But Ohio State might end up being the second best team in the country this year.
Yeah, they probably were. I mean, I don't know.
We'll see what happens in the TCU Georgia game. Maybe that's wrong. But
I want to fight my temptation to do what I've done at every turn, because my gut feeling when I was watching the Georgia-Ohio State game was that this is the national championship game, that whoever wins this football game is going to go on to win it. And I don't know if that's fair.
After watching TCU, I don't feel that way. I feel like that game, Georgia-TCU, is going to stand on its own. And I hope TCU plays the same way they played against Michigan, against Georgia, because if they do, this will be a game.
The thing that I'll say about TCU is that they play so hard. They are so fast. And no matter what's going on in the game, good or bad, they are legitimately there to scrap on the next play. Mm-hmm. And that was, a gift of what great teams have. Like TCU has scrapped all year for everything that it's gotten. And it would be a disservice to TCU to pretend like they have no shot to win that game. And the column I wrote is we have to rethink about how we view rosters and the talent that they have. And hell, maybe TCU is more talented than that number indicates.
Well, I would think so. I mean, TCU is number 32 in the talent composite?
What's that?
TCU is number 32 in the talent composite.
Yeah.
Is that right? And so obviously not over the cut line of the blue chip ratio, which, our buddy Bud Elliott, I think he's going to have to rethink how that works.
We're all going to have to how we calculate it. Yeah.
Yeah, because what we're going to have to do realistically is what the teams are actually doing. And that's reevaluate. Once a guy goes into the transfer portal, reevaluate where he is. Because if he was a 5-star recruit, but he's done nothing, then you take him down a few notches. If he was a 3-star recruit, or let's say it's like a Jordan Addison, who was I think he was a 3-star, or maybe he was a 4-star, but wins a Biletnikoff. Well, he's a 5-star now that when USC grabs him.
It's a very complicated discussion. I don't know if we should blow a ton of time on it, but it's definitely something that we need to talk about maybe in the next week.
That's a great off-season discussion.
Yeah.
And a good this week discussion. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
This is
because we're going to have to bring that stuff up when we're talking about TCU in the context of whether or not they can match up with Georgia, because what TCU did against Michigan was really impressive. Mm-hmm. Georgia is a completely different animal to that. Like
Georgia
it's
is
not
a
even the
completely
same
different animal.
galaxy. Yeah.
That said, Georgia's defense did not look impenetrable anymore.
No, you can throw on them.
Yeah. CJ Stroud sliced and diced them. And it wasn't that they didn't get pressure. They did get pressure. And I'm the one who's been saying CJ Stroud doesn't look great against pressure because he hadn't.
He looked faster in this game to me.
He looked loose. The play where he gets away from 2 different guys and runs toward the right sideline and then hits Harrison in the end zone. Like that is a top 5 draft pick quarterback play. Like,
well, I mean, it's even the hidden plays that you don't really talk about, like escaping pressure and being able to throw it away rather than getting sacked.
yes,
Like he saved a lot of yards and incomplete passes.
He also ate the ball a couple times where he had no hope, and it was the smart play. Didn't try to do anything crazy, and that's why Georgia didn't force a turnover at all. Like that was one of the bigger things in the game. So, all right, our buddy Chris Vanini, our coworker, what is the narrative on Ryan Day now? It seemed this game could define our view of him. What is it after that performance? I think
I thought he restored himself a little.
A little? A lot.
Well, you're going to go into the offseason with a certain segment of the Ohio State fan base that is going to say no moral victories. You're going to have a coach that lost 2 games in a row to Michigan.
You are 1 kick away from beating what we think is probably going to be the national championship team.
Have you been reading this chat on the right here?
I know.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to be like, why did he get conservative at the end? Why didn't he try to get more yardage? Why didn't he try to score?
They didn't get conservative. They threw a couple times after they got to the 31. They were trying.
Look at here.
Oh, Chase Edwards. He's blown his second 14-plus lead in the playoffs, Andy, against the best team in the country.
Yeah.
You were 1 point different from the best team in the country, and if a kick had gone differently, you'd have been 2 points better than the best team in the country.
So here's what I said.
That's all you can hope for. That's all you can ask of them.
Ohio State lost all benefit of the doubt to pick them to win this game because it was fair to question whether or not Ryan Day was capable of getting them to play at the level that they played tonight. And the reason why I said that was because they spent the entire previous year fixating on Michigan. And when they played them, it was an unimaginative ass kicking on your home field. So why would I think that with a 3-week period to get this team ready to play Georgia, a much better version of Michigan, that he would be able to put them in a position to play, at a high level? And that was wrong. He clearly got every ounce of what he could get out of this football team. And hell, if Marvin Harrison doesn't go out, then maybe Ohio State gets even closer at the end.
The whole James Williams going down in the national title.
It's the second time it's happened for Georgia in 2 years, So I personally don't think that you could sit back and criticize Ryan Day for losing. And the fact of the matter is sometimes you just lose to a better team. And Georgia's a juggernaut. They're a machine. I mean, they're more battle tested in this scenario. So, I don't know. I think that Ryan Day, the way I view him in the direction of the program, has shifted dramatically. And you wrote the column about whether or not, if Ohio State were to blow out or be blown out by Georgia,
it would be very different.
And it was bad when they lost to Michigan because it means you have a Michigan problem. But if you get blown out by Georgia, then it shows that the team that you're supposed to be competing with is in a class of itself and that you don't compare to those things. And Ohio State cleared the fence on that. I mean,
but Ohio
toe-to-toe the entire game.
Clearly was toe-to-toe with Georgia. And that's all you can ask for. And that was.
And how many teams in college football, Andy, go toe-to-toe with Georgia for 4 quarters?
Very few. And that was the gist of my column was, did Ohio State have a bad quarter and a half, or were they a soft program? They proved tonight they're not a soft program. They're not. They went toe-to-toe with the team that most people agree is the best team in the country. And if a kick goes differently, they win the game. That's all you can ask for. All right, I do want to read these 2 quarterback stat lines.
Okay, go ahead.
Like CJ Stroud was great, but Stetson Bennett was amazing too. CJ Stroud was 23 of 34 for 348 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also, now he lost yards on sacks, but he did rush he gained 71 yards as a rusher. He finished with 34 net yards because they pull out sacks, but he was very good on the ground as well. But Stetson Bennett, 23 of 34, 398 yards. So 11.7 yards per pass attempt, 3 TDs and a pick. I mean, it was out freaking standing play by both quarterbacks. And it was just, you never had any doubt. Like it surprised you when the defense made any kind of stop at all. That's how hot these 2 guys were.
Yeah. Oh, and what's college football at its best, right? Watching high level quarterbacks play high level football with the biggest stage. That was a spectacle. And I was watching the game with Stu and Bruce in Bruce's hotel room at the Camelback Inn, and it was just, I mean, college football at its peak. College
Yeah,
football at its
it's
peak.
everything you want. Kevin Tay with an interesting question off the game you were at. What about the narrative on Jim Harbaugh? Sure, he's beaten Ohio State twice, but he can't get past the semis. Could this be the ceiling for him in Michigan? Does this increase the chance he goes back to the NFL? I don't know about that.
Mm,
I had somebody tell me they thought he might take that he'd be willing to take the Colts or the Broncos jobs. Those jobs stink. So if he really wants to go, he might get a chance because a lot of the hot NFL head coaching candidates might not want those. But I don't think this showed that they can't get past the semis. If the thing
it's hard to
bounces a
win a
different way,
playoff
they
game.
get past this semi.
Yeah. No, it's hard to win a playoff game. And if you think about what does this say about Jim Harbaugh? When you think about the depth of which his program has advanced in the past 2 years, the fact that they seem to have solved or don't seem to, they have solved their Ohio State problem, and Ohio State, has a problem
Yeah.
with Michigan. They've won the Big Ten in consecutive years, and they went to the playoff, and it's tough that they lost, to TCU, but losing 2 years in a row in the semifinals is not something that you hang your hat on or hang your head about. If you're going to get Michigan to the playoff in 4 out of 10 years, then I think you're doing really well at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it 2 years in a row. I think this guy can kind of write his own ticket now for at least the next 5.
Yeah, if he wants to go to the NFL, okay. But I think
It
what
would be
he's
such a
doing
shame
now,
if he went to the NFL now too, with what he's got going
seriously,
there, man.
because he's gonna
keep
break
going.
through if he keeps doing this.
Yeah, I
like
mean, think about the improvement from the past 2 years. Now, if they improve on this, they sign a really good 2024 class. They keep killing it in the portal like they've been killing it. That's a tough team. Watching Michigan play, listen, I'll say this right now, and I'm going to curse, okay? So get ready.
go ahead.
Pulling that touchdown that Michigan had in the second quarter off the board was bullshit. Like that was a touchdown.
No, that was wrong.
Yeah, that was
the ball bounced off his forearm. He then slid over the goal line,
and he caught it in the end zone.
I have no idea how on review they overturned that call. It was the correct call on the field, and the video evidence supported it.
I don't even know why they reviewed it to begin with. The ball never even touched the ground. There was nothing even to review, and I get
what they were thinking is he caught the ball at the 1 and then
were they reviewing to see the? I thought they were reviewing the catch. They were reviewing the spot.
Yes, they were reviewing where he caught the ball, but they got it wrong on the review because they said he caught it at ahead of the goal line. He did not. He didn't have control until after he crossed the goal line.
Yeah, and the grab ass on the first red zone appearance where they ran the Philly special. It's like, come on, ridiculous, man. That I'm not sure. I love that.
Then
call.
They try the dive on the next one and they fumble.
So they had 3 2-goal situations in the first half and came away with 3 points, and it's just like, Michigan. If you really kind of think about some of the plays that happened in that game, they were right there. If you come away thinking that Jim Harbaugh's a fraud or that he can't win after that, then I don't know what you're watching.
Every bad thing that could have happened to them in the first half happened, and they were still in the game. And then that third quarter was just bananas.
Can I say something else? I want to say something else about Jim Harbaugh.
Of course.
I don't know about you. I gave that guy so much shit for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, he's still been weird, but I found him to be far more likable than he was even before. And maybe that's what happens when he's winning.
Trying so hard like he was at the beginning.
But if you see the way that his players cling to him,
they love him.
The way that he he goes through the workouts and he does things that other coaches don't do. And I just kind of feel like this guy built the program the long, hard way. And he got through idiots like me talking about how bad he was for the first 5 years. He didn't respond to any of that stuff. He did things his own way and he broke through. He took half the salary. I don't know how a person could not like Jim Harbaugh based on what he's done the last 3 years. I respect the hell out of anybody. How many coaches do what he did with his salary?
Not many. Scott Frost did, and he ended up losing the job anyway, but getting all the money. Jim Harbaugh is the only one who bet on himself.
Took half a salary, bet himself, got the money back, and built the program that he thought he could build. To beat the rival 2 years in a row, and get to a point that we all thought was impossible. If you would have told me 2 years ago that they'd beat Ohio State twice and kick their ass twice, I would have been like, what are you, this is a talent problem. This isn't something that any coach can even fix. And he's just, It's just incredible. Douglas Andrew thinks it's an incredibly bad take for me to think that Jim Harbaugh is weird. So I don't know.
Douglas, have you paid any attention over the
to
last,
anything he's
I don't
done for the
know,
past 20 years? I don't know.
yeah, when was he on Saved by the Bell? I think it started before then. So yeah, Douglas, I don't know what you're watching, but he is weird. I think it's endearingly weird.
It is turning into endearingly weird. At first it was off-puttingly weird, and now that he's winning and he did what he did, like, I love the guy.
Yeah. It's so like that is weird. Like it is weird to think that he's not weird.
And now it's actually an honor that you call me Jim Harbaugh weird. At first it was kind of an insult. Like, I'm Jim Harbaugh
it was
weird.
Always a compliment.
I'll wear a shirt that says Harbaugh weird. I'll be one of the freaks with him.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm a freak.
You're endearingly weird. Harbaugh weird, actually. If we ever get our t-shirt printing off the ground, because Stars Matter, we might not be able to do. Dudes Everywhere, we're still going to do no matter what.
Yeah, we might have to change the podcast name if TCU wins the national championship, but that's a discussion for next week.
Frogs matter.
Stars don't matter. I don't know.
Hypnotoads matter.
Yeah, so I really do have a lot of respect for that man, and it's a team that is really easy to root for. And the thing that you love about college football too is when a team likes each other and they like their coach and they want to play for that guy and they want to, win for their program. And I feel like Michigan is the perfect manifestation of what people love about college football. Yeah. And for as cool of a story as TCU was to move on, and I'm excited to continue to talk about them for the next, week and possibly beyond. Michigan, I think, is the epitome of what people love about the sport.
I think we came away feeling good about all four teams that were in the playoff. And I can't remember. Well, obviously there hasn't been one like that.
There's no fraud in the playoffs this year.
Nope. When we come back, let's talk about why that is. Because I'm wondering if changes in the sport have made that to be the case, or if this is just a one-off. We'll figure it out when we come back. You're going to make some resolutions this week. And one of those, I guarantee it, is going to be you're going to work out more and you're going to stick to it. But it's hard to stick to. I know that. It was very hard for me until about 2 years ago when I joined the Peloton family. And now I feel like I'm working out with my friends and they're pushing me through this. I don't know Andy Spear or Adrian Williams or Selena Samuela, but it feels like they know me. And it feels like they know how to push my buttons and make sure that I am working as hard as I can to be the best, most fit person I can be. And here's the thing. You're probably thinking, Peloton, that's the bike thing. Well, I don't do the bike very often. I like the treadmill. I like the boot camp classes. I like the weights. I like the yoga. I've done the boxing. They've got something for everybody. You can mix it up. They've got great music. The personalities of the trainers will help you kind of figure out, oh, I like this person. This person works for me. And it'll make you excited to open that app and say, oh, they got something new for me. This is going to be awesome. I'm telling you, you'll be able to stick to it this time. So try Peloton risk-free with a 30-day home trial. It's for new members only. It's not available in remote locations. You can see additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial. But give it a try. I'm telling you right now, it'll be the easiest resolution you ever kept. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover. Well, now they're bringing that precision engineering to your shaving experience. If you're watching on the video feed right now, here is a Henson Shaving razor. It looks decidedly old school, but as you just learned, it has some high-tech stuff in there. Razor blades are like diving boards. The longer the board, the more the wobble. The more wobble, the more nicks, cuts, and scrapes. A bad shave isn't a blade problem. It's an extension problem. But by using aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, which is less than the thickness of a human hair. That means it's a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. And they're exactly right. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades, and no planned obsolescence. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edged blades to give you that old-school shave with the benefits of new-school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/Andy to pick the razor for you and use the code Andy, and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. It's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com. That's hensonshaving.com/Andy and use the code Andy. That's hensonshaving.com/Andy. Welcome back. So, Ari, all 4 teams belonged with one another. I don't know if the matchups had been different, if that would have worked out differently, but we saw 2 great semifinal games.
There's one matchup that could have been differently, Andy. You know what that matchup is?
The one that they're going to play in the national title game?
No, if you're going to...
Oh, Michigan, Ohio State.
Well, that would have been great. I might have interrupted you, so you finish your point. But
no,
I was going to say the Alabama inclusion potentially in the playoff.
Well,
you put Alabama on the other side, then you're back to the vintage same.
We'll get to that because I do want to talk about that in a bit, because that Alabama Kansas State game was very interesting and I think very, very informative for what is going to happen in 2 years. So,
yeah,
but Georgia was not head and shoulders better than Ohio State. Michigan was obviously not head and shoulders better than TCU because TCU won the game. Is the game changing in a way that there will not be some team just towering over everybody once a year?
Yeah, I think the bigger question, Andy, is will there be a year where there aren't 3 teams or 4 teams towering over everybody else? Like, if you think that the 11 seed in a year that isn't a 2 or 3 loss Georgia team can win the national championship because of the way that the game is assembling. And I like to read a quote from Sonny Dykes that I put into my story. I asked him at the media day in Scottsdale before the game, why his team was able to transcend their lack of talent, not lack of talent, but their lack of on paper talent in comparison to past. And I thought that it was a very interesting quote and something that we're going to have to dive into a lot. So how is it that TCU built this roster? He said, in today's college football world, it's a lot different assembling a team than it was a while back. You used to rely on signing recruiting class. You redshirted the class if your program was good enough to do that. So all the programs that were good historically had an advantage because they didn't have to play freshmen. Then those teams went to bowl games, got those 15 extra practices, got a chance to work those young players, and those young players got an extra year of eligibility on the back end. There was only one way to acquire players back then, and that was a traditional through high school recruiting. Well, in today's world, it's a lot different. You can acquire players and acquire them in a lot of different ways. People don't really redshirt as much anymore because if you redshirt somebody, chances are they're not going to be there for very long. So what happens is that it opens the door for maybe a non-traditional program to acquire players in a different way, which is kind of what we did. Had we not been able to add 13 transfers, we would have been in trouble defensively. So our roster is constructed a little bit differently than Michigan's, but I do think that you're going to start to see more teams like TCU get on stages like this.
Well, and Michigan's there in part because of transfers.
Right.
Oluwatimi was a huge transfer addition for them. So,
and you just saw what they did in the portal this past 2 weeks. 5
absolutely
really
probably
good players.
The best job in the portal of any team this year. So it is changing. NIL's changing it. I think if we'd listened to the economists, they told us NIL will spread the talent more rather than consolidate it more. And it turns out they were right. It's almost like they study this stuff. So I think we're going to see us a little more of a spread, less of the 1 or 2 dominant teams. That said, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State still have a prohibitive advantage in acquiring talent because pre-NIL,
put our heads in the sand.
I was talking about this with an NIL person today, someone who runs NIL for one of these big schools.
Okay.
And they said they don't have to pay as much up front, those schools, the Georgias, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, because they have a built-in sales pitch of we make first rounders. Right. That a new staff like Sonny Dykes never had a chance to say that because he just got to TCU. So he can't say we make first rounders at TCU because he wasn't there. So he can't say that. But Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and Ryan Day can say that credibly, and players will believe them. What will be interesting is some of these guys that are going for the bigger money and picking different schools who would have gone to Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. If they wind up being good, they wind up being first rounders. Does that bring those schools into that club?
Yeah. But I think that's something that happens over the course of a 5 to 7 year period, not a 1 to 2 year period. Because track records of, developing draft picks and playing at the highest level, at places like Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State are transcendent over decades. Or at least the college football playoff era. And I don't know if the path to legit parity is that short. I think that as NIL continues to flourish, I'm very curious to see if that market resets itself.
Yeah, there's
And
not
player,
going to be parity. Like college football is not going to look like the NFL. It's not going to be a situation where the worst team can beat the best team on a given day. It's not.
I know, but I think parity in the sense of, can the 15th best team ever beat the first best team?
Right. And
Like, because like
I don't
that
know if we're going to
is
get there.
because like the gap between the best team in college football and the 15th best team in college football
It's
is
still huge.
wider than the best team in the NFL and the worst team in the NFL.
And it's probably wider than the 15th best team to the 60th best team.
That's right. And it's like, as we go into this national championship game and we start to break it down, like there's no way I could possibly in good faith pick TCU to win that football game. Like I can't. And I won't. And
it's weird. You can't pick them in good conscience, but you sure hope they do. Because
yeah,
it would
and I
be
think the
very
entire
exciting.
sport would love to see it. I would love to see it. Although it would, crumble my Stars Matter throne.
Oh no, 224, great point. Super seniors are making the sport better. Given most students graduate in 5 years, now going from 4 eligibility years to 5 might make some sense. I don't think they're going to do that, but I do think you're exactly right that especially for the teams where the players are pretty good, but not necessarily high NFL draft picks, you're getting a lot of quality starting college players coming back. So you get the get old, stay old thing.
That point is really good too, because as you break down new ways to look at the talent on a roster, you have to start asking yourself some questions like, do we re-rank the players after they go into the portal? Do we re-rank everybody's roster after a given year to give a better sense? But how much value is a 3-star prospect who's a 4th or a 5th year senior in comparison to a 5-star sophomore?
A 3-star prospect who has been starting for 3 years at a Power 5 school and is 22 or 23 years old, especially on the line of scrimmage, that person is extremely valuable.
Right. And maybe more so than, a high-end 4-star defensive tackle who's in his first year starting, who redshirted or played as a sixth man or something.
Yeah. Yep. No, it really is. The dynamics are changing. I want to talk about some of these other bowl games, Ari, but in the context of what's coming with the playoff, because I think it's very interesting what we saw. What we saw in the Orange Bowl was fascinating. What we saw in the Sugar Bowl was fascinating because Alabama and Kansas State both would have made the playoff. Now, they would not have played one another. USC would have played at Alabama based on the CFP rankings. K-State would have played, I'm trying to remember. They would have been, I think, the 11 or the 12 seed. So they would have played somebody else. The Tulane would have been 12 seed playing TCU. So K-State would have been the 9 seed. Oh, yeah, K-State would have played Tennessee. K-State would have played Knoxville.
Or wouldn't K-State have been higher ranked because they were the conference champion?
Nope. Because they weren't one of the 4 highest ranked.
They weren't one of the 4 highest ranked. Okay, yeah. 9 is right.
Utah and Clemson were getting buys.
Right. Okay. I'm with you now.
So, now, like, for example, Clemson would have had to play the winner of one of those first 2 games. I think they would have had the 4 ends up playing the 5, so they would have had to play the winner of the TCU Tulane game. So you probably got a Clemson TCU game in a quarterfinal. I think TCU wins that game.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where things get pretty interesting. And so, I look at Alabama and they go down 10-0 and they blow the doors off K-State after that. Like, how much of a bracket buster is Alabama or a team like that? It could have been this year's Alabama. It could have been 2015 Ohio State, 2012 Texas
You
A&M.
watched Alabama play on Saturday. You could make the case that they were one of the 4 best teams in college football. And
Absolutely.
if you put Alabama in on the other side of the bracket against TCU or Michigan, like in good faith, I'd be, I don't know. I was so impressed by both of those teams, but it'd be really hard not to pick Alabama
Yeah.
in that game. And if Alabama would have played TCU or Michigan and won by 14, which still would have been maybe a 7-point game for most of it, and then they score at the end to make it 14, this playoff would have felt very similar to previous playoffs. So if you make yourself think about what the 12-team field would look like, this is the exact point of why I was kind of against expansion, because what you're going to do is you're going to open the door for a team like Alabama to be in, and you're going to deprive yourself of a team like TCU playing for a national championship potentially.
But you need to earn it. You need to earn your way to the national championship.
And TCU did that.
No, by playing the best teams. You're going to have to really earn it now. And
Right.
so, like, you can't get by because Alabama lost to Tennessee and LSU.
But you see what, this is the point that I've always made, which is even the teams that didn't earn it in the regular season, who are still unequivocally one of the 5 or 4 best teams in college football, as I think we can agree Alabama is this year, that you're still going to have the penalty of playing that Alabama
I
team
want to
on
see
that
them
stage.
play. I want
Yeah,
to see them
I
play the
know,
best
but
teams.
in the same discussion of, are we going to start to see more teams have a shot at the table and stuff? My opinion is that if things don't change drastically or continue to go in the same direction as the way that these rosters are constructed, that all you're doing is giving these other teams a seat at the table that they didn't
Ari,
otherwise
what's
deserve.
the spread on the TCU Georgia game?
13.
So what's the difference? The TCU got there?
Yeah, I mean, I think winning a semifinal game is really important for them.
It's very important for them. But so would
And we're the
being in the
ones saying
playoff
not to
every
count
year.
them out, right? But what game are we playing? Are
You're
we playing
saying they wouldn't have a chance in a 12 team because they might play Alabama. Well, they beat
I didn't
Michigan
say
today.
they wouldn't have a chance. I think that this year's TCU team could beat Alabama. I don't think this year's TCU team could beat Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State 3 games in a row.
Well, then they should get better.
Yeah.
Weren't you the one saying people need to be extraordinary and figure out how to be extraordinary? Then figure out how to be extraordinary. So I think that's going to be so much better, because if you like these 2 games, imagine 8 games before them. Now, there will be some blowouts, but because of the way it's structured, because it's not 1 versus 12, it's going to be 5 versus 12 and 6 versus 11 and 7, 10, and 8, 9. There's a really good chance you're going to get games like you saw today with the same winner go home stakes.
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be down to the wire games for sure.
And that is going to be amazing, because your heart was in your throat the entire time today. You didn't feel that way watching the Orange Bowl. And there were some great bowl games this year. Like the Liberty Bowl was awesome. I mean, it feels like other than the Orange Bowl, all of Friday was pretty great. Like all of Thursday was
the entire
great.
bowl season's been fun to watch.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like, listen, we can't continue in this relationship as friends having the debate about whether it should expand. It's expanding.
Well, exactly.
And I think too that it's going to be awesome when it gets here. And I'm looking forward to it.
We need to prepare for it. And I am hopeful. Again, I don't know, but I'm hopeful based on the very limited amount of data we have that you are going to see more teams that really are capable of winning the national championship. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's trending that way.
Yes. Yeah. I think I could buy that it's trending that way.
Great. Here's a great stat from Zach Ament. The Cure Bowl, Troy versus UTSA, first day of bowl season, will be the only matchup this season between conference champs in a postseason game. That is crazy.
Yeah. We almost got a national championship game of 2 non-champs.
So, can you imagine what would a Michigan fan be thinking right now if that kick had gone in for Ohio State?
I think that it would have. The question I have for you is, Well, I've got 2 points I want to make. First, Ohio State fans hate Michigan. I understand that they hate Michigan, but I was so kind of like a little surprised that they were so happy to see Michigan lose to TCU. Because if I were an Ohio State fan, my number one wish would be to play them in the national championship game.
Yes.
I'd want my team, if they were good enough to beat Georgia, to have a chance to be the one that puts the stake through the heart of your rival after they were so high on happiness for the past, 6 weeks or whatever long it's been. And the second thing is I was trying to come up with, if I were a Michigan fan, would beating Ohio State and then watching Ohio State win the national championship
Be miserable.
be worse than losing to them?
The Michigan fans would say, no, it doesn't matter because we're in the Big Ten and winning the Big Ten title is the only thing that matters. And winning that game is the only thing. No, it doesn't. Winning the national title is what matters.
It's like if Ohio
It would have
State
sucked to watch them play for the national title
So
and
do you think
probably win it.
if you gave them ass juice into their neck
Yeah.
and said, would you rather win the national championship and lose to Ohio State? They would all be like, yeah. Right?
Yes, they would want to win the national championship. Just like Alabama lost to Auburn in 2017 and won the national championship and was like, who cares that we lost to Auburn?
Yeah, if that field goal would have gone in, that would have just, it's like, why can't Michigan have anything?
Oh, I mean, it would have been brutal for the Michigan fans because Ohio State would have been what, a 10-point favorite against TCU?
Probably.
Right. So I don't know if they'd won or not. Like, I don't know if this
maybe
was,
even
this,
similar to Georgia after what we saw. Yeah.
I don't know if this was Ohio State at their ceiling and maybe they don't play that well the following week, or I don't know. But if that kick goes in, I think there would have been a very good chance that Ohio State winds up the national champ. And
yeah,
that would have sucked for Michigan fans. So
yeah. Well, I get, the good news for Michigan fans is that, you can be
Michael
happy
Thompson, as a Michigan fan, my New Year's saved.
Yeah. Can be happy with another positive, season in the right direction and a win over Ohio State. And now you can watch with the rest of us on Monday to see if TCU can slay the dragon. So, good for you. It was, there's a lot of drama in this semifinals.
This is an interesting one from Go Black 45. And I sort of agree and I sort of disagree. When people say more teams, they're just swapping big brand names. Take out Bama, put in USC, swap Ohio State for, I'm assuming UT means Texas, but it might mean Tennessee. That's what people and TV want. TCU is a nice story, but folks want more big brands. I disagree. I think they want more big brands, but they also want TCU. Like they want Cinderella too.
What do you think that means as it translates to ratings?
Oh, I listen, big brands are better for ratings. Let's be real. But a Cinderella story is great too. People
do you
love
think that
Cinderella
the general college football fan will be tuning in next Monday to see TCU try to beat Georgia in the same
not nearly
numbers
as much as if it had been Georgia?
It would have been
Michigan.
like Georgia, Michigan, or Georgia, Alabama, or something like that. It wouldn't.
If it was Georgia, Michigan, it would have been off the charts.
Yeah. Everybody says that they want parity.
Yep.
So if you want parity and it shows up and TCU is the team that's playing, then watch the game as if it were two big brands.
Exactly.
Because everybody says they want parity, but I think there is some question about whether or not people actually do. Because
I'd love to see TCU, because you always talk about, you should try to become the next Clemson, the next team that becomes a member of this club. I want TCU to become the next member of this club. I think that would be a great story. I want Utah to become the next member of this club. I think that would be awesome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if the unthinkable happened and TCU beat Georgia, would that be the most surprising national champion of your lifetime?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe in the history of the game?
It'd be the most surprising national champion ever. Because BYU won, in 1984, they were undefeated, but that was the era where you couldn't just match, like you couldn't just put them against the next best team. And TCU would have to have gotten through Michigan and Georgia. Like there'd be nothing fluky about that.
Yeah, like BT Bates here says, you want Cinderella to get bounced in the Sweet 16 so you can get a week of talking about Duke, UCLA, Kentucky, and North Carolina. And it's like, do you think that now that we've arrived in a place where Cinderella has reached the national championship game, that's a good thing for college football? Or do you think that, being competitive in a semifinal is as far as college football fans want to see Cinderella?
I think it's a good thing as long as they're competitive in the championship game, which I'm not ready to dismiss them after watching them in the Fiesta
But if
Bowl.
I gave you ass juice, what
I'm
would your
picking
final
Georgia.
score be?
I don't know if I picked Georgia to cover at 13, honestly, after
You
watching
don't?
that defense get destroyed tonight.
Yeah, I think I would lay the points.
Well,
But TCU has spent all year
we
proving
both
people
we
wrong.
both thought
So
we'd lay the points with Michigan and
Mhm.
Georgia, and guess who covered?
no, I took the points.
TCU and Ohio State.
No, I took
Oh,
TCU.
I mean, okay, I got you. Yeah, but yeah,
But Michigan
TCU
isn't in the
and
same
Ohio State
stratosphere
covered.
as Ohio State and Georgia from a talent standpoint, playing on an indoor field with a month to prepare.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not the same beast. The boogeyman's waiting around the corner. We're gonna see it again. And the truth is that until the rosters are more equally put, that it's going to bear out in the end, I think.
Well, and look, here's the thing: there are gonna be years where there's a blowout in the championship game. There are years where the Super Bowl is a blowout.
Right.
And those teams are designed to be as close to one another talent-wise as humanly possible. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes there's a bad matchup. Styles make fights.
I just don't want to see a national championship game that's 56-3.
I don't want it to either. But again, like I said, there are sometimes blowouts in the Super Bowl too. It'll happen sometimes. But I just want exciting games along the way, whether that's an exciting game at the end, exciting games in the first round, exciting games in the quarterfinals, exciting games.
Well, you got your wish this year. That's for sure.
I did. And that's what I love it. It too late for the 14 playoff. We'd already decided it was too boring, gotten rid of it. But I'm glad it happened. It's so funny because I think back to 2012 when they created a playoff and then they were trying to figure out how to logistically do it, what nights to do it, because they had that weird deal where the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl had to be on January 1st. And I remember Bill Hancock saying, we're going to make New Year's Eve a new tradition, a new college football tradition. Well, they finally got that on New Year's Eve as the freaking ball dropped. Did you see the synced up footage of the ball drop in New York City and the field goal in the Peach Bowl?
I did not, but I heard about how
the ball passed the left upright the moment the ball hit the ground in Times Square. It was incredible.
That's sad. That's funny. That's sad.
Sad.
I feel bad. I feel bad for the kicker.
I
always feel bad for the
Noah
individuals.
No, that's, and it's funny because I spent the whole night telling Jeff Schultz from The Athletic was sitting right next to me, and there were a few extra points down near the side of the field that we were on where Georgia nearly blocked him, and I'm like, Georgia's blocking a kick tonight. And as soon as they're lining up for that field goal, I'm like, what have I been saying all night? What have I been saying all night? And when that thing went side, I was like, I told you. And then we saw the replay and they didn't actually.
There was no block.
They just yanked it. But it was like, it was, they'd gotten very close a few times. So I was sure that kick was getting blocked. But when I saw the synced up footage, it was at Bubba Prague on Twitter. Go find it. It will amaze you because they're counting down in New York City. Ruggles is lining up for the field goal. He kicks it with about 2 seconds before the ball hits. And then as the ball is flying past the upright, the ball in Times Square hits.
Well, New Year's in Phoenix, I was on this call with you.
Yeah.
I just said, look at your perfect face.
Mwah.
Oh.
I know you'd rather be kissing your beautiful wife, but you're stuck with me.
We did the air kiss on the FaceTime. Does that count?
That's better than my wife and I kissed by GIF. She sent me one at midnight. I sent her one at 12:23 because at midnight I was a little busy.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. I thought it was really cool for our podcast that you were in one and I was at the other.
That we're gonna have to do this again, but
we'll be back together.
Time
next
to
week.
Bring up what we're doing next week. We are headed to Los Angeles for the national title game. It's going to be the Andy Staples Show and Friends in LA at Media Days. We're for National Title Game Media Day. Me and Ari are going around and we are asking players in the national title game the would you rather questions. Somebody's answering the turtle question. I don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, we're going to have to, actually have a call and organize our thoughts because I could have come way harder with Lane Kiffin. So I need to.
Oh, we're going to have to find
sure
the best
that
would you rather question. Maybe we try some out on the show during the week to see what we like the best, to see what we're going to throw at the players come, I believe, Saturday's Media Day. So we will be prepared for this. It's going to be glorious, Ari. It's going to be
I'm looking
glorious.
forward to it. I'm looking forward to. Now we're debating whether or not I should fly back to Dallas and then fly to LA or just stay here for a few more days and just drive over.
Oh, you got to drive to LA.
I know I want
There's
to.
some great outlet malls on the way.
Oh, it's the best outlet mall in America. They got a YSL outlet.
There you go.
You know how I know that?
Yves Saint Laurent.
Yeah. Maybe hit the Salton Sea. Maybe get some In-N-Out.
There you go. Listen.
Look at the windmills. You know, the air windmills.
This sounds like a pretty amazing week to me.
Yeah.
That's probably what you should do.
I have to get my wife to go for it because there's a toddler waiting for me at home.
Ari,
too, so we'll see.
And also our friends from the Solid Verbal, Dan Rubenstein and Ty Hildebrand. So Dan is a SoCal native. He has, from what I understand, rented a party van that will take a group of us from one taco establishment to another. Believe me, there will be some podcast content recorded that night.
Oh boy, we're gonna have a hell of a time. I can't wait for it. But I'm also excited for all the podcasts between now and then. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to dissect, and hell, Andy, there's no better way to ring in a new year than the games that we got on Saturday.
Absolutely,
it was a lot of fun.
Stay tuned because we got a ton of great shows for you this week. We're gonna call it Stars Don't Matter when Ari and Mitch get back together.
We're gonna have to do that. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Oh,
maybe you should come on the show on Wednesday, and we can have the discussion that we were having for 2 minutes on this one on that show. We can get you and Max Olson on. Maybe that'd be a good show.
Do it. We need the Portal Authority. Yes,
we need the Portal Authority. We need you. Yeah, we'll set that up.
We got a lot to catch up on, guys. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to everybody. So glad we finally got 2 semifinal great games in the same day. It's about damn time. We'll talk to you soon.